Story 1. The vagina is a naturally moist place. When we say we're dry, don't imagine skin dry. Imagine your mouth. Normally, it's a wet place, right? But when we say we're wet, it's noticeable. Like you smell something delicious and you're salivating so much you have to swallow. That is wet. Not normal mouth feel wet. Story 2. Sometimes I'm quiet because I do not want to talk or have nothing on my mind. I also look out the passenger window when I am a passenger because I like looking out the window. It is not because I am mad. It is because when I drive I never get to look out the window. Story 3. That ignoring their mom being passive-aggressive to their girlfriend or wife is actually reinforcing that behavior and harming their relationship, not keeping the peace. Story 4. We have no control over our periods, not when they come, not when they go, nothing. And the things we can get or take to minimize them often have harsh side effects that not all of us can or want to deal with. This is something you must understand. Story 5. I know it's not just women that this happens to, but not being listened to in an academic or professional environment. We have helpful insights to problems just like men. We are smart, creative, and skillful too. I'm tired of having my intelligence underestimated and ignored. Story 6. Here's a thought. The amount of toilet paper we need to use. I've seen a lot of men complain about how much toilet paper the women in their house go through, and they say things like, I hardly use any. Why can't they learn to live off a few squares like I do? Men don't understand that women have a lot more to clean up. Men usually only use it after going to the bathroom for a bowel movement or to clean up a little drip. Women can't just shake it and be done. We also have discharge to clean up, which is constant, and it's only worse when we're ovulating. Then on top of that, we have menstrual periods to deal with. We need more toilet paper than you do. Give us a break. Story 7. How much our menstrual cycle affects us, not just the bleeding part. Hormones are a powerful influence. Not to mention hormonal birth control means we have to handle additional hormones and side effects. Story 8. That women aren't a monolith. Just because your ex-girlfriend likes something doesn't mean your new girlfriend will. Just because your mom likes something doesn't mean your aunt will. Just because your sister had light periods doesn't mean your friend is faking her pain. Women are people, and while they share common experiences, they have their own preferences. About 90% of the Ask Women threads are removed because they aren't asking women general questions about their experiences in being women. They're incredibly specific questions that they should be asking their girlfriend or their mother, for example. Story 9. When we talk about feeling unsafe at night walking home alone and similar situations, we know that out of 1,000 men we come across, 999 are just normal men heading somewhere who don't mind us in any way. The problem is, we don't know who the one with possibly evil intentions is. Reading through some answers right now, and yes, a lot of men really don't get it. Thanks to the ones who understand or try to understand. To make things even clearer, we know that the vast majority of you are humble, normal men living your lives, and that the vast majority are equally disgusted and repelled by predators and murderers. We know. The problem is, we can't know who you are if we don't know you well, especially if we meet you for the first time. Unfortunately, sexual predators and abusers don't have universal traits or signs that expose them. It would be better for everyone if they did. And dear men, also stay safe and be careful. Don't get into strangers' cars or go home with other men you don't know and just met. Your chances are generally higher to successfully defend yourself than for women, who are generally physically weaker. That's why we are even more careful, but still don't risk anything. I'm talking about the average man versus the average woman. We all know there are female boxers out there, but the average woman isn't one. Someone is justifying rape in that comment section because men of low quality can't spread their genes otherwise, and it's just violent if you resist. The problem is because of men with such a mindset. Story 10. That truly sharing household and domestic tasks means doing it unprompted. I don't want to have to ask you to tidy up or answer questions if it's your turn to cook or constantly manage social calendars and remind you of things. My brain needs a break too, and taking initiative means a lot. Story 11. I think a lot of guys don't really understand how acting like an additional child to be taken care of at home is going to have a direct, deeply negative impact on whether your partner sees you as a competent adult down the line. This generally means doing your fair share of housework as another adult in the same household without your partner having to act as your manager. If you've been living there for more than 5 years and the house isn't huge, you should generally have an idea of where household items typically get stored or how to do the laundry. That isn't to say that suddenly doing the chores will fix all your relationship problems, but it's generally a good idea to be like this from the beginning and be consistent. This probably isn't that gendered in real life, but you see this crop up a lot in heterosexual relationships where somehow the girlfriend has wound up doing most housework, childcare, and also works full-time while the guy maybe mows the lawn once a week or does household projects that somehow never actually get completed. Story 12. On sex. It's not because we show you or tell you that what you're doing is good, that it means go faster and harder. No, it means keep going and change nothing. Story 13. If you are in a relationship with a woman and having issues in the bedroom, take a good hard look at how the other parts of your relationship are working. Chances are very high there is a reason why the desire is dwindling that is not only sex-related. Story 14. That fights never come out of nowhere. I just moved past this life lesson with my significant other. We generally get along, and I let him lead the relationship. I also bring up concerns that turn into conflict, that turn into problems because he was neglecting the need to acknowledge it and how it made me feel. It takes two people to have a relationship. Remember, you can both be burnt out, but how you handle and process things is not how your partner does. What could have originally been, I wish you'd pay attention when I talk to you, turned into, you consistently neglected our relationship to the point I doubt if you care for your relationship or your partner. Correct yourself or accept that you are liable for the consequences. Don't be the person that brings a partner to that point. Story 15. The energy it takes to actually get in the mood enough for it to not hurt to have our body penetrated. That's why so many women don't want to do it multiple times a day and aren't ready at the slightest suggestion. It's so easy to just get an erection and push into something. I wish more men understood that being penetrated is not the same. The vagina is a collapsed tube. That's why tampons the size of a finger stay in place. You can't just force things in there. Even with tampons, you have to go easy. Story 16. That period pains for 1 in 10 women can be worse than contractions at birth. We are not dramatic or over-exaggerating. Women's health is terribly lacking and underfunded, and we are just surviving out here. It's not our fault and doesn't make us less of a person. Extra help with food and cleaning around those pain attacks can mean the world to us. Story 17. Pregnancy and postpartum is not easy. I have seen men make comments about women with hyperemesis, saying, they throw up to not gain weight. I myself had it with my first child and would want to die smelling cooked food. Felt like I had a violent hangover every day, all day long. Also, now at my age, I am underestimating how bad hot flashes are. Story 18. That when we're ranting, having you listen and pretend to agree goes a long way. I don't want to hear how it really isn't that bad because right now, at that moment, it is that bad. That is why I'm talking to you about it. Story 19. When I first met my now husband, he didn't understand why women are scared of most men. It wasn't until I was harassed, stalked, and humiliated by men that he completely understood. He apologized for never taking me seriously before. It didn't take long for him to come to the realization, which honestly happened within the first few months of dating. But with men being inappropriate, it happened a lot where we used to live. My husband has saved me many times, and I'll always be thankful for him. Story 20. Most adult women have an incredibly high tolerance for pain. This can be due to various contributing factors like menstruation and childbirth, but can also be attributed to factors women do not want to speak openly about, like poverty, not being able to afford care or treatment, abuse, mental, physical, sexual, or even fear of being labeled as weak or emotional every time they make a complaint. If an adult woman in your life complains to you about pain or illness, please take her seriously. You aren't necessarily responsible for solving it, but showing a little compassion can brighten her day. Yes, some women will not have a high tolerance, but they are definitely in the minority. Story 21. If we have sex with you, we may get pregnant, even with contraception. You may then disappear, even after acting like a respectable person, and fight any ties to your child forever. We may be required by law to bear your child and become a mother alone, struggling to support ourselves and a newborn. If we don't die during pregnancy or childbirth, which is more common in some parts of the United States than in any other developed nation. So don't ask why women won't just sleep with you, why we won't give you a chance and just have sex once, or why we're not going to relax and watch a movie for the first date. Women enjoy sex too, but we are facing the rest of our lives potentially raising your child alone if we don't die first. Story 22. I don't stop existing when you're not looking at me, nor is it my goal to be looked at by you. No choices I make are in any way linked to your approval or otherwise a plea for your attention. I simply am, just as you simply are. That is all. Story 23. Sometimes I just don't want to be touched. I don't want to hug. I don't want to cuddle. I just want to be left alone. And no, you haven't done anything, so stop trying to make me feel better. Edit. Since it wasn't explicitly stated, this was communicated before. Story 24. Sometimes men just don't get how important it is to listen and validate feelings instead of trying to fix things right away. It's not always about solving problems. Sometimes it's just about being heard. Story 25. Saying things they don't mean because they think it's what we want to hear. I don't care who responded badly in the past. Each person is a new page, and they should not be held responsible for the transgressions of past partners. If you can't adequately separate the two, you should not be actively dating. Or, at the very least, have excellent communication skills and be able to talk through what is going on in your head. It's exhausting getting the flip-flop and whiplash of men who say one thing and then do the opposite a short time later. Story 26. A lot of us don't view you as protectors. I know that's the image you have been sold since you were a child, but the people you are supposedly protecting us from come from the same group you do. And bad men don't walk around with a sign saying, "I'm a bad man." So our caution has to be applied as a blanket policy. We don't hate you, we just know that if something bad happens to us, the first thing people will do is ask why we even put ourselves in that situation. It's not personal. Story 27. Groping your girlfriend or wife constantly is not as appealing as you might think it is. We are objectified like that everywhere. Having it done to us at home, too, is a huge turnoff for a lot of women. Story 28. The bear man thing is not about whom we think we can fight off. It's that in a worst-case scenario, we'd rather be killed by a bear who is just killing us for food or to protect its babies or territory than to be harmed by a man who can find any number of ways to degrade us further, kidnap us for prolonged torture, record it, all to not be believed and to be questioned about what we were wearing and have jokes made about how we deserved it. Story 29. Periods, pregnancy, and childbirth experiences vary. You can't compare one woman to another. I'm lucky that my period cramps are so light that I can get by with Tylenol, but there are women who are in too much pain to move and literally can't hold a job. Those women aren't faking just because I can get by fine. One woman may have a relatively easy pregnancy, while another woman might have such bad hyperemesis gravidarum she spends half the pregnancy in the hospital. One woman might be able to work up until she gives birth, while another woman may get put on bed rest in month 3. One woman might feel fine while another woman is in too much pain to move. She's not being overdramatic just because you know someone else who had an easier time. One woman might have a relatively easy childbirth while another woman might be in labor for 4 days, have a 4th-degree tear, and end up with post-traumatic stress disorder. Another woman might have a cesarean section with no anesthesia because there was no time. So just because one woman told you childbirth was easy doesn't mean the woman with post-traumatic stress disorder is lying. Story 30. To the older men out there, menopause is a roller coaster of physical and emotional changes. Please educate yourselves about it and be supportive and patient. Story 31. We know you didn't suddenly get 20 times dumber than you were before whenever we ask you to go to the grocery store and buy cottage cheese and spinach. We know you didn't suddenly get confused about what cheating is when your ex, who was really gorgeous, texted you. We know you're not stupid. Story 32. When women complain about feeling unsafe walking at night, and men derail the conversation with, "But men feel unsafe walking at night too." Imagine you're also half the height and have less than half the physical strength of other men, which is the women's experience. If you're scared too, imagine how we feel. I don't think men understand how vulnerable women feel around men, simply because we are fully aware of how easily overpowered we are. Story 33. We don't get colorful hair, long nails, lips filled, makeup done, and outfits on to appear attractive to men. We do want to look nice for some men on occasion, but the majority of the time it's because we feel good like that. You think I dyed my hair pastel purple to seem attractive to some guys? I felt awesome with it. And a lot of other women compliment you, which is a nice addition. So the actually, men don't like black lipstick is meaningless. I like black lipstick. It is not for you. It is for me.